Hello, dear listeners, and welcome to another episode of Fill Your Cup, Mama. Today is episode number 5, and we're delving into the depths of mental health and the intricate balance of faith, exercise, sports, and arts in finding a healthy release. I'm your host, Belinda Kiriakou, and this is a journey through my own life. From a devout Catholic upbringing to navigating the challenges of family dynamics, personal struggles, and eventually finding my path to a more fulfilling lifestyle. We are getting real deep today. So to start off, first and foremost, I'd like to speak about faith as being the core. For me, anyway. Growing up, I found solace in faith and attending church daily with my parents, specifically my mother. I went to church every single day, and I even had to pray 10 rosaries on my knees as a young girl. So for those of you who don't know, a rosary, it looks like beads. It's 5 sets of 10, and there's prayers as you go around. So this could take, to finish even just one rosary, that takes anywhere from depending on how fast you do the rosary. And when I was young, I used to do it really fast, and I would speed through it. So it could take you anywhere from 15 minutes. And I mean, if you really take your time, it should probably take you half an hour. So imagine doing 10 rosaries. I was 10 years old and I was on my knees. Oh my gosh. I mean, I could talk more about that, but we're just going to be, touching a little light on these topics of today. So faith became a cornerstone, and it offered stability as I sought balance in the chaos of life. And I'm so grateful. I didn't really fully understand it when I was a little child, but now as I'm 39, a mother of one, a wife, and just going through crazy changes of life through these past years, having my faith and really holding steadfast to my faith has really gotten through difficult times, mentally and physically, and my faith has never steered me wrong. So I'm so grateful to my parents for instilling that. I really, really do value it, and I appreciate it so much more now, having my own family. Next is talking about family struggles. So something that I have never spoke about socially on my social media, and only a handful, just a few amount of people in my life are really aware of personal things when it comes to my immediate family. These aren't things that I expose on social media or talk openly about, because it's very private. It's a very private matter. But I am talking about it today because I think it's important to touch upon the importance of understanding mental health and how much positively and negatively it can impact other family members when you have someone in your own family who is struggling themselves with mental illnesses or neurological diseases or are neurodivergent. So I am the youngest out of 4. I have 2 older brothers, 1 older sister, and I am the youngest. So again, not something that a lot of people know. A lot of people even wonder, do you even have siblings? Because I don't post anything about my siblings for my own personal reasons. So my eldest brother, Daniel, who I love so very much, was diagnosed with Tourette syndrome when he was early on in high school. And with Tourette syndrome, it's a neurodivergent part that I think nowadays have become a lot more exposed, and there are a lot of well functioning people who have Tourette's. But unfortunately, this wasn't the case for my brother. So having Tourette's presented unique challenges in my own family, and it impacted our family unit. The constant need to navigate his conditions, which also included OCD, which is obsessive compulsive disorder. It added an extra layer of complexity, making childhood a delicate dance on eggshells from a very, 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 very young age. So for those of you who don't understand what Tourette syndrome is, Tourette syndrome is a neurological disease, so it impacts a part of your brain. And so with these conditions in your brain, what happens is that, think about it as if one side of your brain is not functioning as much, and then the other part of your brain is that much more heightened. And it affects his motor skills, his neurological abilities, and he would have tics. So, just certain things that trigger him would lead him to have, compulsive movements. So he would have to keep moving his arm, would he have to keep moving his leg, or his neck, he'd have to keep twitching. Yes, for those of you who have experienced someone who has Tourette's, there are circumstances where a person would bark, yell out, swear words. And this isn't the case for all people who have Tourette's, because there's different severity of Tourette's. But this was the case for my brother. And when you're triggered with stressful situations, it makes these tics that much more amplified. So that was one thing. I mean, we can joke about it now, as a family, and sometimes you'll have a tic and he'll kick the table and we'll all start laughing. But it is something is such a delicate matter that I'm going to speak upon, because it hits such a deep, deep nerve for me that even to the point of today, I get so emotional talking about it. When you have an older sibling who is constantly suffering, it becomes a part of your everyday. Where, as a kid, I had to always walk on eggshells so I wouldn't upset him. I had to be careful of the colors that I wore on my shirt, symbols, characters, because certain colors or designs could trigger his OCD. And I had to live in a state of having to try to be perfect all the time, even though there is no such thing as being perfect. And talking about this is hard, because my family, most of my family and my siblings live in Korea now. And, I've gone about my own life, but when you're away from it for so long, you kind of forget about it. So, you forget about it, but it still holds such a deep part of me that I think subconsciously it impacts everything that I do, which is why I'm in the business of service and helping people and using empathy as a tool to help others feel that they don't need to be so perfect, but at the same time understanding though that we also have to push ourselves to be who we want to be despite how we grew up or socioeconomic conditions or culture or whatever it is that in the past may have impacted you traumatically. But at the same time, I would go back and I wouldn't change anything about my family dynamic, because having someone with a neurological disease and constantly dealing with the concept of wanting to be a normal child, but then also realizing that this is my normal. I go to school, I play sports, and then I come home and this is my reality. Learning to navigate that at such a young age forced me to grow up, and now as an adult I believe I am so resilient to deal with anything and everything that could possibly come my way because of the intricacies of what I had to maintain psychologically from a young age, while trying to still excel in school, be social, and fighting hard to not let myself drown in depression or being sad all the time. And this is where going into sports and exercise, this is where I found my outlet, my healthy outlet. It became a catharsis for me. It was a healthy catharsis where I would play a lot of sports because I had so much emotions pent up with me when I'm in the house. There was a lot of yelling, a lot of screaming, and just understanding that even for a young child, I was so aware of the stress that was happening in my home, financially, emotionally, not just what I was going through, but my siblings, my parents. As a young child, I felt all that. I was so aware of all that. But at a young age, I also made a decision that I wanted to be a beacon of light, even to my family. And I didn't want to be sad all the time. Coming home was not happy. It wasn't a happy place. And it's not that I love my parents. My parents had so much love for us. Our family dynamic, we were so close because of everything we were going through. So playing sports was where I felt at my best. I let out anger, frustration, and sadness. And I put it all there on the field, on the court, on the track. I let it all out there. And that's how I fought to keep myself strong, and I refused to be weak on the daily. And I learned that, and I made a decision from a very, very young age that I wasn't going to let my current circumstances that was not within my parents' control. It was not within their control. It wasn't their fault. But I made a decision early on from a young age that I wanted to be happy. I wanted to excel in school. And I'm grateful to my mother because she, despite everything, raising 4 kids, she also worked. And she really made an effort to ensure that we had all an opportunity to take part in extracurricular activities. So I was able to do our classes. My parents really supported me and all of us in our sports. Piano lessons, which I hated. So with all of that, everything going on in the house, I'm so grateful to my mother, who made an effort, to take us to the library, take us to swimming classes, because she knew that we needed something that would make us happy and to keep us mentally in a positive place, keep our life colorful, despite the unfortunate situations that were happening within the home that were not within our control. So I talk about, as a mom, where there's been times where I feel like I'm just surviving. And I talk to a lot of mothers who feel the same, that every day they are just surviving and just making through their days. You go to sleep and then you're doing it all over again. You're doing it all over again. And that's why I'm back to coaching, because I had to fight to pull myself out of these dark, dark places in my head. And I found that by sticking to a routine, fighting for those minutes to have to myself, fighting for my health, so I was no longer feeling weak, sick, exhausted, just kind of getting by on autopilot, overstimulated all the time. And if you are a mom, I know you know what I'm talking about. Being overstimulated, meaning like when you're with your kid, it is nonstop talking, picking up from them, picking up their toys, feeding them, screaming, yelling, being like kicked at, being punched at, like screaming nonstop, and you're just trying to deal with everything, and you're like, can I just get a minute here? To the point where being in the washroom was the only place I could feel like I was sane. Quietness and stillness. And it's kind of the same thing when I go back to when I was a kid. I loved art. I loved painting. I loved drawing. I loved using my hands to make things, to design things. I drew on tissue boxes. I drew on everything that I could even just draw on. And that was like a healthy outlet for me. Sports was everything for me. So sports was where I felt like I was myself. I had my own identity, and I was really good at playing sports. I was empowered. I was in control of how well I would perform with the amount of time I would practice. I took my practice seriously. And I genuinely just enjoyed the challenge of overcoming obstacles through sport. So now talking about like socioeconomic struggles coming from a lower income family, I battled self-consciousness about clothes and self-image through my childhood, teenage years, and adolescence. And these struggles shaped my perspective, and it fueled my determination to create a better life for myself. It was hard, but I figured it out from a young age. And then dealing with the whole idea of rebellion and self-discovery through my teenage years, as a form of rebellion, I snuck out to raves. Yes. People get shocked when I tell this story. I went raving when I was in high school for a year. I loved the drum and bass room. Shout out to the drum and bass lovers. So I would snuck out to raves. We lived in a townhouse back in the day. Oh my gosh. I still can't believe I did this. But I'm also not shocked that I did this. I had like no fear when I was in high school. So I would listen for my dad to go into our backyard and smoke. Jeez. My parents know about this, by the way. When I knew he was going to go out to the back and smoke, I would then open my window, remove my screen ever so carefully, lift myself, place my bum on my screen. Now remember, there's only if you look at a windowsill and you look at how wide it is, it's not that wide. So I would sit on it. Mind you, I'm all ready to go to rave, okay? So I'm all dressed up, all decked out, got the beads, got the soother. Oh my gosh. Got the Madro pants. Do you guys remember those Madro pants? Yeah, I had those bright Madro orange pants. Oh my God. Okay, so anyways, I would sit on my windowsill, hold myself, then place my hands, I would twist, wedge my feet on the side of our townhouse, the brick. Then I would turn, hang, put the screen back, and then jump down. Now this is from the second floor. I would jump down onto the ground from my bedroom. And there's other people who live across from us, and if they could watch me, they would be like, this girl has lost her mind. Or maybe they were doing the same thing, I don't know, because so I used to do this Saturday nights, then go raving, come home early Sunday morning, walk through the front of my door, take a shower, change my clothes, and then get ready to go to church. Yeah, I would go straight to church. Oh my God. So much shame there. And there were days where I was intoxicated. And I'd be in church. Hi. Yeah, it's pretty messed up. So this so perfect Belinda that you guys may have pictured wasn't always the case when I was in high school. But given that, it was just about a year. I had a rebellious year in high school. I don't want to say I hung out with the wrong group, because at the end of the day, it was my choice. I had a lot of fun. The crew was cool. It served its purpose for that time. I failed grade 10 math. My gosh. And then I had to go to summer school. But I became smart. I fixed myself up and I said, enough with this stupid business. Let's you got to get your head together because you got to graduate. And then actually my year was the last year that I had OAC, so I fast tracked and make sure I got into university. So yeah, I did the crime. I paid for my time, and nothing I would recommend to any of the young kids listening, or parents. Keep your eyes open, because you never know what your kid is doing. Oh my gosh. But listen, it is what it is, and I learned from it, and I can look back honestly and laugh, and it allows me to tell really hilarious stories about myself. So fast forward to university days now. Now I want to talk about like independence and resilience, where my life took unexpected turns and my parents moved to Korea. My father left Korea first because my grandmother at that time had passed away and she was really sick. So Korean culture is the eldest, and my father was at that time the second eldest out of 8 kids. His eldest brother had passed away, so he had to go. And then years later, my mom went. So then at that point, I was like just in the middle of university, and it left me to have to, kind of just deal with like my mom and my dad kind of like going back and forth to Korea. My sister, who is amazing, 4 years older than me, was basically like throughout my whole like childhood kind of took on like a role as another mother. All my siblings did, like my parents, because there's a 4-year age difference, 7 and a 9-year age gap. So I'm so grateful to my siblings because they had it a lot harder than I did. I mean, I was young, but they had to take on a lot more responsibilities from a younger age, taking care of their siblings. So ultimately, I had to take a year off of university and I had to go to Korea. And my mom's plan was for me to stay in Korea, or so she thought. And I was planning to come back to Toronto, finish university, and going about my own way, set a life for myself. So that part was a hard time for me too, because there were disagreements. And I didn't talk to my mom for quite some time because I was so upset at her. And but whatever, we figured it out, and I eventually came back to Toronto, and I stayed with family friends who took me in. And then eventually I found my own place. I was living in a basement suite, and finished my way through university. Thank God for OSAP and student debt, but that's how I made it through, with my tuition and my books and just my food and everything. And then I also started working. I had to take care of my rent. I had to pay for everything, my entire livelihood. Tuition and books are expensive, man. But I was making my own tuna sandwiches and had my meals. I would go to university. I had one bag for my books, my laptop, and another bag for my food. Like, it was just day in, day out. That was my lifestyle. I made it happen. I figured it out. I wasn't going to drown. I was going to show my parents that I was going to make it happen, and I did. So I was juggling that. But the cool thing is that while I came back, I enrolled as well. I was studying psychology at that time. And then I also wanted to see if I wanted to do a little bit more. So I researched and I saw that there was this joint program with York University and Seneca, and it was a rehabilitative program. And I thought, wow, this is cool. This is what I want to do. And I want to have some like work experience to see if this is what I want to do. So I got accepted. So this is now I'm finishing my undergrad in psychology, and then also finishing up another 2-year program simultaneously. It's a certification program at Seneca at York. So I was taking on more courses. But, as proud as I was that I got into this program, I realized quickly in a few months that this was not for me. Like, I was having to do hours, like volunteer hours, as part of my program at like rehabilitative clinics. And it's incredible, like the work that you do. But I realized early on, oh my gosh, I do not want to be sitting at an office desk pushing papers all day. No, I was becoming miserable, and I realized, nope, this is not what I want. And I'm grateful for that experience. So yeah, I'm like grateful for that experience, because one thing I'd always tell younger kids is, sometimes you have a glamorous image of an occupation or like a career path you want to take at a young age. And you have to like experience hands-on to see if that's really what you want. And by doing that, I realized, nope, I am not working a conventional 9-to-5 job, sitting at a desk, pushing papers all day. It was a horrible experience for me. Horrible in the sense that I knew that's not what I want to do, but positive experience in the sense that it gave me like that eureka moment that this is not for me. This is not how I'm going to spend the rest of my adult years. No. So I actually finished a year early. I didn't finish off with my certification, which is fine. Of course, I still graduated with my psych degree. But through that time, I realized like also I want to continue like coaching and counseling people in the field of like health, fitness, and wellness. But I don't want to be dealing with people in the aftermath of all their injuries and issues. So I realized I really want to take on an approach where I'm taking a proactive approach to like educate and inspire and coach and teach people the necessary tools to prevent themselves from getting sick, prevent yourself from getting illnesses, prevent yourself from getting depressed. And that's why I got into personal training and teaching yoga and how much I fell in love with it. I loved the environment. I was surrounded by like-minded people. And of course, for me, working out was just something I loved. It came naturally for me, and that's how I entered the path of personal training and yoga. So because I rejected the traditional 9-to-5 office life, I discovered my passion for fitness and wellness. So juggling personal training and yoga instruction alongside my final year of university became a transformative period, leading me to a fulfilling and unconventional career. So there's so much to talk about this from here on. But today's episode was for me to give to you guys a deeper conversation, like deep layers that I have never exposed ever on any of my social platforms, ever. But my purpose of talking about this and opening up my own vulnerability is, well, number one, I think it's great. We're in a time and age where we are talking more about mental health and sharing our stories. But it's also that if this hits a nerve with anyone listening, to give you a source of encouragement and inspiration, but to be proactive about your life, for you to know that as we continue to explore life's twists and turns, seeking inspiration, resilience, and the endless pursuit of a balanced, happy existence is possible. It just comes down to your daily choices that you make and knowing that you are not bounded in chains by your own childhood. And again, it's not to blame our parents. Our parents, man, they were trying to just figuring it out the best way that they could. Not holding yourself captive to things that you experienced growing up, but using them as powerful vehicles and tools to allow you to become more empathetic to people around you, not to judge people, and to understand that there's so many other layers to people when we talk to them. And to also take your pain, your frustrations, your limitations that maybe you had while growing up, your disappointments, your anger, and your shame, or whatever it is that you're feeling, to turn it into your superpower, to turn it into something that will allow you to be greater, to take all of those wounds that you've experienced and turn them into something that is powerful for you to be a better service to people around you, to help other people. But of course, you have to help yourself first, and to fight to better your circumstances. And I definitely have to say that because of all of that, I am where I am, in a place of financial stability, in a good place mentally, emotionally, in a good balanced place to be a strong mother for my daughter, a strong wife to my husband, and still the silly, crazy daughter to my family, even though we live thousands and thousands of miles away from each other. That I can honestly and genuinely look at everything that I experienced as a kid and to be so grateful, because everything was such a wonderful learning experience, an eye-opening experience, that I see the world differently. And I come to people with an open mind and an open heart, and do what I can to bring light and vitality to those around me. So remember, fellow mother, fellow mom, or whoever is listening, that your cup deserves to be filled. Keep your head up. Let's not just survive, but thrive. And keep working towards that, because it's an ongoing journey. And you're doing amazing. So until next time, take care, stay well, and keep fighting the good fight, and live with gratitude.